All right. Now, this is one that's a little bit easier to go through. In my opinion, maybe not easier because they're one of the best in the entire country. Got a solid group of returning players. I really don't see a ton of issues on the horizon for the defense. If I had to pinpoint 3 players that I felt like Clemson desperately needed to be at their best for success this year, here's who I would have. All right. For me, it would be number 1 would be Xavier Thomas. Number 1, XT. Clemson now more than ever needs a defensive end that shows up and that is the star of the show. They've lost 2 defensive ends to the NFL draft in KJ Henry and Miles Murphy. It's time for the guys who haven't got as many opportunities to show up and show out. Specifically with Thomas, because he's been dealing with his fair share of frustrations and injuries throughout the year. Finally, after a few weeks of contemplation, he decided to return. Really, why did he return, Al? To showcase his talent at the defensive end position for a full season, to show what he can do to the whole nation when he's healthy for an entire year. The guy looks great. His eating habits, his diet, his workout routine, he is absolutely jacked. Hopefully, he will not have another setback where he injures his ankle, injures his foot, whatever it may be. Only time will tell. But the ultimate goal for XT is that he performs at the highest level possible on a level that puts him on notice to be a first-round draft pick in 2024. He needs to do that. So for Clemson to be successful, he needs to do that. You know why? Because who is after him? Greg Williams, I did a video recently of him. He's gone. He's left. Not a surprise to you and I. We've talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
But after that, Al, there is no experience. You've got Cade Denoff, Zaire Patterson, and then after that is people who have not played at all. So while they are very talented, they do not have experience at a Power 5 college football level for an entire year. So Justin Maskell, Xavier Thomas have to stay healthy, be consistent. And for XT, he has to be the 5-star guy that sets the nation on fire and gets himself back into that first-round draft pick that we believe he is. So for me, on the defensive side of the ball, I've got XT. And then I've got to talk about another guy who is actually a guy who it's not like a dark horse or anything. He was played out of position really most of last year and got exposed. And a lot of people started to write him off as well. And that, I think, was unjust. And that was Andrew Mukuba, safety who had to, because of injury, change positions, get down in the cornerback position, get down in the nickelback position. It disrupted his rhythm. You could tell that he was frustrated when he went to the sideline as well. Just like the wide receivers were frustrated, his natural position is safety. That's where he needs to be. That's where he was a top performer as a freshman. He needs to get back to that position. There's no excuse for it this year, Al. They have the depth at cornerback to be able to allow for Mukuba to stay at his position at safety. Now, could he double in for if he needed to? Yeah, he could. Could he go back if he needed to? But that's not what you really want. No. I want him to reclaim his freshman form and be a huge impact player for Clemson. So I've got defensive end in XT. I've got Andrew Mukuba at safety. Last but not least is a guy who's got huge shoes to fill. And that is Wade Woodaz. I mean, he's a linebacker that is going to be needing to fill the void of Trenton Simpson. Guy who was drafted in the NFL, I think in the 2nd round. I can't remember off the top of my head. He's a strong side linebacker, needs to excel at not only stopping the run and setting the edge, but dropping back in coverage in the tight ends, in those slot receivers when needed, sneaking out into the flats and covering the running backs. Trenton Simpson was able to do that. Trenton Simpson was a guy who showcased his talent and his value and excelled in the NFL draft because of it. Wade Woodaz is one of those guys like, who is this guy? A lot of the, I would say just casual fans didn't really know about him. But let me tell you something. The reason why I think he's the real deal is because of that game. I can't remember the team. You'll have to tell me. But the game where Trenton Simpson was sick or injured, and Wade Woodaz came in and not only stepped up, but excelled at replacing Trenton Simpson in that game. He was exactly where he needed to be almost every single play. He has a knack for the football that I remember from guys like typical middle linebacker guys like Skalski and like Bulware. He has that nose for the football. He's constantly getting in on tackles every single play. If he's not there, he's helping and getting half of a tackle or a third of a tackle or a tenth of a tackle. Wade Woodaz is everywhere. Same thing goes for Barrett Carter, but I think Woodaz is more important because he's filling in those shoes of Trenton Simpson. So those are my three guys on the defensive side of the ball. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you agree or disagree, I'd love to get your comments. We'll get to them after Big Al.
Look, you nailed number one again. It's obviously Xavier Thomas. There's no doubt about it. He's got to be the most important piece on this defense. Defensive end is the major question mark. You know, we don't have a lot of proven talent there. We don't have a lot of depth there, period. I mean, we got guys that don't play. Now, you said, you know, after Thomas and Maskell that it's going to be a bunch of guys that have never really seen the field. And you're right and you're wrong. Yeah, you're right because they've never seen the field unless it's Rook Ororo or, you know, somebody like that sliding out to the end, which he can play end a little bit at times in Clemson. I don't think they're gonna do that full time or anything, but situationally, I think he can provide some depth there. I think he's got the versatility to do that. So it's a scary situation. I mean, Clemson defensive ends have been good for a long time, and this is going to be, you know, this is going to kind of be a make it or break it year. Xavier Thomas is in great shape. Like you said, he's been injury riddled since he's been here. We want to see Xavier Thomas versus Syracuse back when he first started. That's what we want to see every time, coming off the edge and destroying the quarterback. And I think he is fully capable of doing that this year. And I'm really pulling for the guy, as Clemson Nation is. Everybody's pulling for him to have a healthy year, show what he's got. And like you said, he can be a high round draft pick if he's really able to live up to his potential. So pulling for Xavier Thomas, obvious number one there. Number two, I went linebacker at number two. But I went middle linebacker at number two with Jeremiah Trotter. I think simply because, you know, Wade Woodaz and Barrett Carter both, you know, have a little positional versatility. They can do more things. Trotter, he's your guy at middle. He is the middle linebacker that you have, you know. So he's got to be that guy. He makes good decisions. His football IQ is very high, and he's a great athlete. One of the better middle linebacker athletes we've had in quite some time. The dude can play. And he's going to be a huge asset in the middle. Absolutely love Jeremiah Trotter. I think he's my number two for sure. Number three, we agree on this. We just have him out of position. I have Andrew Mukuba. Did not think you were going to pick Andrew Mukuba. I actually had Nate Wiggins here originally and changed it to Mukuba. There's just a lot that goes into this decision. You know, Mukuba he had a letdown last season, period. You know, one can argue that injury factored in. One can argue that he was playing out of position. There's a lot of reasons maybe this happened, but he simply didn't live up to the hype that he afforded himself in his freshman year. And he had a particularly bad game against the absolute worst team possible. And it cost Clemson everything. It cost him the playoffs. It cost him the rivalry streak, which would have been the most ever. It cost him the home win streak, everything. So, and there were a lot of things that cost him that game, by the way. I'm not simply pinning this on Mukuba, but Mukuba did have a particularly bad game there. This guy is too good to be playing that way. He's too good to be playing that way. I know he can be better than this. I look for him to be a man on a mission this year and provide Clemson a lot of stability on the back end.
I'm shocked that you would say that. So what were your three again?
Number one, Xavier Thomas. Number two, Jeremiah Trotter. Number three, Andrew Mukuba.
And by the way, we don't plan this beforehand. We don't do any prep. But again, 2 out of 2, 2 out of 3 for us. We might as well be friends, Al. You're telling me that you feel like Andrew Mukuba's performance against South Carolina was a huge fact. I felt like it was a fact among all fans that it was the fumbles from. Oh yeah,
I'm not saying. By the way,
and Phil Maffa.
Yeah, not in the fact that they didn't start Cade Klubnik or put him in immediately. You know, almost when. I say not immediately. When it started to go bad, obviously, they should have given him a chance. DJ had obviously lost it. I mean, and the fumbles were a disaster. Okay? The fumbles were a disaster. Antonio Williams fumbled. Who else fumbled? Was it Maffa?
Phil Maffa.
Yeah, I can. It was, oh my gosh. I've tried to put so much of that game out of my mind, but I'm pretty sure that it was Mukuba who was faked out by a mile on the 4th-and-1 fake or whatever, that they ended up passing the ball for like a 60-yard touchdown or 40-yard touchdown or something. He just, he was just out of position more than he usually was, and that was a bad one. That was a glaring mistake, and maybe it wasn't on Mukuba. I have to go back and watch, but at the time, I remember thinking Mukuba was in the wrong spot there. Or didn't pick up his guy. They got faked, and it was a good play by South Carolina. But geez, it was just that was a tough game, man. It's hard to get over, just like the Clemson baseball season ended. I was just not ready for either of those. So we'll see if we can put some smiles on the Clemson fans' faces this year.
Clemson Carson gets in and says he remembers that one play Mukuba blew up his assignment and gave up at least one touchdown. Later on says 2 long touchdowns, according to his notes.
There you go.
He also says Lucas has all the talent in the world, but like a lot of these guys, has to stay healthy. Thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah, I like Lucas a lot. If I'm not mistaken, it was Lucas who had the great interception against North Carolina in the bowl game. I want to say we talked about that once on the show, but it was just a thing of beauty. The way he turned around, found the ball, stopped, high pointed it in front of the receiver. Unbelievable. That's what we want to see. He's got the physical tools. He's got the length. I think he'll get there. He just needs to stay healthy and get some experience.
Clemson Tiger 300 over on YouTube gets in and says Andrew Mukuba's mistakes were mental, not necessarily being at a different position. He was watching the backfield while his man ran right by him. Happened against Notre Dame, South Carolina, and even later then says Tennessee. So what are your thoughts on that?
All I have to say is they seem to be backing me up. And when you threw me under the bus, I got the guys coming to my rescue here, because I see this. I see it the same way they do.
John Sarian gets in and says, if XT doesn't become the next alpha like Murphy and Furl before him, do we really have a next guy up to be that dog? Good defensive ends for sure, but that alpha question?
Not this year. Not that I know of. I don't know. I mean, who would it be? Yeah, I mean, you're talking about freshmen. Other than that, or freshmen or guys that have never played. I don't see how you have that alpha right now.
Jeremy over on Facebook says he could see Tyler Davis, Rukaroro, or Peter Woods standing up alongside on the opposite side of XT. Do you see that at all?
He says Tyler Davis, Rook, and Piwu down with Xavier standing up on one side. So Xavier
okay.
would.
I read it. I read it wrong.
Yeah, but I think you could see Rook or Peter Woods on the outside. I think either one of those can shift to the outside if necessary. I didn't mention Peter Woods earlier because we haven't seen him play yet because he's a freshman. But yeah, Tyler Davis, I don't see him setting much of an edge there.
I appreciate everybody getting in over on the chat and being a part of the discussion of defensive dominance, key players on the defensive side of the ball, and also the topic we did previously, which was the offensive players and who are the impactful players in 2023. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook. Follow me over on Twitter at The Morgan T Show. And we've got a ticker down there for some other things that you can get into as well. You can be a part of the 110% Club and get a shout out during the live show, get some really cool emojis, get some really cool badges that you can earn every single month. And they get cooler and cooler as they go. And then also you can be a part of our free DraftKings Fantasy League in the description as well. Go ahead and join and be a part of that. We got things running right now, even though it's not college football season. So I appreciate everyone being a part of the show and getting in there.